Well, we begin with a developing story that stirred tensions in the nation's capital earlier this week. The hashtag Free Nnamdi Kanu Now protests that gripped parts of Abuja on Monday, October 20th. Supporters of the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, took to the streets, defying heavy security presence and demanding his immediate release in line with court rulings. It was a day that began with chants of solidarity but soon turned tense. Now we have our correspondents who covered the protests report that despite efforts to keep the demonstrations peaceful, protesters faced multiple disruptions from security operatives across key parts of the city. The situation quickly escalated with reports of sporadic scuffles, arrests, and in some areas, journalists, including members of the News Central team, being harassed while carrying out their duties.
Indeed, that, of course, raises serious questions about press freedom, security response, and the larger implications of this protest. What does this renewed agitation mean for national unity and justice? And how should both the government and the protesters navigate this tension moving forward? To unpack all of that, we will be speaking with News Central TV's correspondents, Sagir, Ibrahim, and Aishat, Salihu, who were on ground in Abuja covering the protest. Of course, they will share what they witnessed from the protesters' message to the atmosphere on the streets and their own experience with security operators.
Well, just before we welcome Sagir and Aishat, let's take a look at this report.
It was a day of complaints across several parts of Abuja as security operatives mounted checkpoints and blocked major roads in anticipation of the Free Nnamdi Kanu Now protest. The protest, convened by activist Omoyele Shaware and a group of supporters, sought to draw attention to the continued detention of the pro-Biafra agitator. However, the heavy security presence and restriction of movement left many residents stranded.
This protest is very bad, especially with the masses. I've been trekking from Maraba Junction, look at me, to Kubo. I'm here, and this look at how I'm sweating.
So hard to get to my place of work. The first route I took, it was blocked. We're not allowed to pass, so I decided to take this route. Same thing is happening, so I had to trek down.
Everybody woke up this morning reporting to his or her duties. At the end of the day, you are turned back. They allow you to lavish your small little thing in your pocket.
From Nyanya, Kubo, Dutse, Meitama, and across major routes leading into the city center, long queues of vehicles formed as police officers turned back motorists and restricted entry into key areas. Commuters who could not proceed with their journeys were forced to trek long distances under the scorching sun, while others abandoned their plans entirely. Businesses were also affected as shop owners and workers struggled to reach their places of work.
Can this man, because of only one person, they shut down the whole nation? And you know the kind of money we are losing? We know the kind of people that there are some people that want to go to hospital, they could not have access to go to hospital.
We spent 2 hours for us to pass Zuba, which is unfair. Many people are going to their businesses. And what Sowore is calling for is a right thing. How can you keep man up to 6 years?
Although the police say measures were taken to ensure peace and order during the demonstration, many residents, however, called for better coordination between security agencies and the public during such operations to avoid unnecessary hardship. In Abuja, for News Central, Aishat, Salihu.
7 a.m. Protesters were already on the streets of Abuja, demanding the release of IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu.
Let's go to Berger.
They regrouped under the Berger Bridge, undeterred by the heavy presence of armed security operatives. They then proceeded into the Utaku district.
If this is our country and we are practicing democracy, then Indeed, every Nigerian should come out and demand for the freedom of a man who is only saying, stop the oppression against Nigerians from the southeast.
I will agitate against it. I will refuse to live in a country where I will be discriminated against because I am an Igbo man.
While interviews were ongoing, security agents fired multiple rounds of tear gas to disperse the crowd.
We're just tear gas right now. Right now, we're tear gas again. See by the same police.
Amid the confrontation, counter-protesters were also spotted along major routes, escalating the tension.
Whether black, yellow, from the north, from the south, we must be allowed to face the word of the law.
From Transco Hilton to Utako, Apo Mechanic Village, Gudu Market, and finally the force headquarters, the protesters' movement were repeatedly broken up by the police. Still, organizers say the message has been sent.
Well, today was massive success. The only thing is that we are going to announce a new date again. And that one will be, they have seen now that we can shut down this Abuja. And you know Abuja, not even the Federal High Court where we're supposed to go and defend our case today sat. Because everywhere was shut down.
And so ends several hours of demonstration across the nooks and crannies of the Federal Capital Territory. For the demonstrators, they say they will regroup and continue in this action until Nnamdi Kanu, the indigenous people of Biafra leader, is released. And for the government, it's left to be seen whether they would cow to the demands of these demonstrations. But one thing is clear, this fiasco is far from over. From Abuja, Nigeria's capital city, for News Central, Sagir Ibrahim.
Well, right now we have our correspondents in Abuja, Sagir and Aishat, on standby, who were, on the front line of the incidents that happened. Thank you so much for joining, Sagir and Aishat.
Thank you. Good morning, Dashin. Good morning, Chua.
Good morning.
Morning to you.
It was quite a disturbing and scary incident, but let's begin with you, Sagir. Tell us about what the atmosphere was like on the ground. How tense was the situation when you arrived at the protest scene? And what stood out to you, the most about the protesters' energy or organization?
Good morning, Dashin. Good morning, Chua. The atmosphere was tense indeed. It was tense because Omeleshwara was there chanting and giving the ginger in the usual format that he does, telling the people it's time for Nnamdi Kanu to be released. And this time, no matter what the government says, they will not be deterred by the efforts by the government. And by all means, they showed this. They showed this because they had first of all tried to converge around the Transco Hilton area in Abuja. Sadly, they were dispersed after they were gassed by officers of the Nigerian police, as we saw in the visuals that have already gone viral. When many people thought that would be the end, of the demonstration as it is, they reconvened around the Bega area and marched into Utako district. Now, for those who are familiar with the Federal Capital Territory and, of course, the Utako district, you know that the luxury bus park in Utako, the one that has all of the buses that travel long distance, towards the southeast, the south-south, and into all of those places, there is a concentration of individuals of Southeast extraction in that area. So, of course, it was really strategically smart to reconvene at that point, and the numbers quickly built from that point, because in a few moments we saw a number of individuals numbering 10 or 15 move to become close to 100 or more than that or thereabout. Now, this train processed through that area down past the NEJF City Council onto the junction at the Jabi Park. And it was at that point that we decided that let's speak to some of them and, of course, get what they were saying. We were speaking with Barrister Kingdom Okere, a human rights lawyer at the time, just 5 or 6 journalists at the time who were trying to get his take on what he thought about the entire procession. And we were surrounded by police officers, and these police officers fired the tear gas canisters. And in fact, right now, Barrister Kingdom Okere is in the custody of the Nigerian police. So it was a tense atmosphere to sum it up.
I can imagine.
Let me come to you now, Aisha. And now we understand that the protesters gathered despite a heavy security presence. Tell us, how did the security operatives respond to demonstrations, and how did things escalate at any point?
Okay, well, thank you so much, Jordan. Well, I would say on my own part, I literally covered the sidelines of the protest. In my own area, the areas I covered, there was no much of protest in those areas. It was more about people who were trying to get to their places of work and places of businesses, and they are facing some level of restriction by the security operatives. I mean, those police officers, officers of road safety, civil defense, amongst others, that mounted roadblocks in specific points, I mean, police checkpoints, and they were not allowing people to move. It was really, really restricted. So for those people, a lot of people had come out on a Monday morning. I mean, I'd say a lot of Abuja residents didn't even anticipate to see such hardship that Monday morning. I mean, coming out hoping to get to your places of work, and then you don't realize that you're being stopped, you're being harassed, and you're not allowed to go to your place of work or place of business. So it's more like you've lost your time, you've lost your resources, I mean your money, transportation. So you can hear some residents in the report talking about even from the little money they have in their pockets, they have to still spend out of that and coming out to see such situation. So a lot of people, they were even saying that if the authorities knew that this is what was going to go on and to have this kind of hardship and resultant effect on the residents, perhaps there should have been an announcement saying, okay, there won't be restricted movement, there won't be, maybe say, take today off, don't come out or something. They were saying they would have appreciated that if that was announced, but instead of coming out and then you're spending 2-3 hours in traffic. And this was what happened. That was earlier in the morning, in the day, and a lot of people were just, roaming about. It was more like there was no business or activity going on, especially in the central area. And apart from that, later on in the day, when we were still following up with the developments arising from the protests, even areas that were protesting and areas that they were not protesting, we ended up at the Federal Ministry of Finance junction. And when we got there, of course, security operatives and officers were still there, mounted heavily in those areas. So as members of the press, we have the right to, cover what was going on and even speak to people who were trying to move from point A to point B and let them assess the situation and all that. But whilst we were at it, I remember Dashin said it earlier that journalists were harassed. I was part of those who were harassed, myself and the camera operator, and also our driver, because we're parked at the junction there. We're trying to get interviews, and then security operatives moved on to us, asking why we were here, what were we doing in this area, what business did we have here. They were clearly seeing a press vehicle, and they demanded for our ID cards, which we showed to them, but they insisted that why were we here? It looked as if we were gathering people, and we explained to them. But then they weren't listening to reason, and they, as you can see in the video, they were harassing the driver, they were harassing the camera operator. They had to calm down, and it was just a whole lot of back and forth. At the end of the day, they even used their firearm to hit the driver, and also one of the officers, the civil defense officers, actually hit the camera operator in his mouth, and he immediately started bleeding from his mouth. So that was just basically what's happening that day. It was really appalling to see that at this day and age in Nigeria, in our history in our democracy, we still have security operatives harassing the press, especially when we're talking about press freedom. So where are we heading? That just basically all we saw that day and more.
Your experience is actually quite funny because, they did see the press car, they saw your ID card and your tags, and they did see some of, I think they saw you guys wearing a t-shirt, a press t-shirt as well, and they were still asking, trying to find out. It just seems as if they had no idea what they were doing in that moment. But let's come back to you, Sagir, as well. If you could share your experience, what happened to you and your crew at your location.
Well, that should take for the action of the protesters and the action of the police to disperse the protesters. For us, we tried the best that we could, to report from a safe distance. Of course, so it was been announced for us because we know that the police would not be friendly, should be caught in the crossfire. Thankfully, we talk about an irony, talk about the fact that we were right and it was happening right there, but then we were able to fix it. But by and large, we still didn't stop the police from said that where we were at. The NEJF City Council area. I mean, this was just 2 feet away from the NEJF City Council. That's the Nigerian Union of Journalists Council. And the police still, in the visual fashion that they do when it's protests like this, surrounded. They saw this to confirm that it was an incident. In fact, in the video, they had picked up, a guy who was holding a placard. They still didn't do anything at that point until when, I don't know, for some reason, they started to throw the tear gas canisters and they ran. So that was the most in terms of harassment that we suffered on our side. But then for the protesters, I can't say much. I can say much more, I beg your pardon, about them, because it wasn't just about tear gassing them, but of course, we saw the police pick some of them up. And at this moment, the police official figures say those individuals number around 13 or so. And of course, we know that this has also transcended into another development with the revolution now convened, and of course, we see Nnamdi Kanu convened and more or less being docked in force.
Well, thank you very much, Sagir and Aishat, for, of course, bringing us those detailed updates and first-hand accounts from the hashtag Free Nnamdi Kanu now protest in Abuja. We appreciate your courage and professionalism in covering such a tense situation and, of course, for sharing experience with us today.